Edwards is the only guy that can say that the Rudy movie is a lie. Because at the end of Rudy, they say there's only one player that's been ever carried off the field at Notre Dame Stadium, and Marc Edwards is the exception to the rule. He's the official edit to the movie. Career with the 49ers, Patriots, where he was a Super Bowl champion in 2002. He played with the Jaguars and the Bears, and he had the role of fullback, which you really don't hear much talk about anymore. So without further ado, let's bring in Big Marc Edwards.
Well, I'm not as big as I used to be. People see me now. I'm down to 220, which was my freshman year weight at the University of Notre Dame. And they're like, you played in the pros, like as a fullback? Like, you're way too small for that. But I have to remind them that I was, about 245 back then, which still is not enormous for a fullback in the league when you see some of these guys now. You see that guy from Baltimore, Ricard, he's 290 or something like that.
Yeah.
But, I was a little more of an athletic fullback back then, catching some passes out of the backfield, but, still using my head as a battering ram.
That's true, Marc. Yeah, sure. Well, Marc, it's actually funny because you see all these people when they retire, like Marshall Yando for the Ravens. They were big and bulky as the offensive lineman, and now he's super thin. I guess you guys, what do you guys do to lose all that weight? Because it's like you guys used to playing weight, and then you see you guys later in the year in your career and you're after football, and you're like, what happened there?
Well, it's kind of guys who get out of the league. It's kind of a third of them stay the same size approximately. A third of them put on a bunch of weight, and a third of them kind of lose a little bit of weight. I still work out very regularly. I did improve how I eat. I cut out the white food, so I'm a racist eater. You can't eat potatoes and carbs and all that stuff. So I cut out all those white foods, and the weight started peeling off of me. So that was my secret. And well, not my secret, but that's just what I did. I just started eating a little bit better. Still enjoy my bourbon and things and cigars and things like that. But, I just eat a little bit better now. And still, you hit the gym. I don't go and kill myself anymore at the gym. It's more of a, beach workout. You do chest and guns and, abs and you just want to look good on the beach. Now that I live down here in Jacksonville, Florida, we're at the beach all summer long. So, I can't be the dad bod at the beach.
Wow. That's yeah. Hey, it's great. Then you can lose that weight. I wish I could do that too. But what can you do?
Hey, Chris, while you guys are talking, I'm going to present something.
Go ahead.
Just so that Marc can feel good. And
just let me know when you pop it up.
Yeah, this stuff is beautiful. Here we go.
Okay, where is it?
There's a throwback for you.
Oh yeah. Now that's a little before my time, but man, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I do have your run at one of your games with Notre Dame. I think I got a clip of it. Hold on, let me log this one out for George here, and then we'll play this real quick. Yeah. So your highlights.
Yeah, 95. Yeah.
Yeah. So
we started off that game running the same play like 3 times in a row. The first 2 times it worked for about 20 yards each. And then, the third time I got tackled, but then that was finishing that first drive of the game. So I had about, 50 yards rushing and a 17-yard touchdown reception in that first drive of that game. And it just kind of kept going from there.
Yeah. It's pretty funny that you're just using you as a battling ram. That's all it is.
Oh, yeah.
And you got Rick Myers.
I couldn't outrun anybody. I still can't. But I ran a little physical back in the day. And we had some good guys up front as well. Still great friends with all my offensive linemen. We're in a text thread where we text just about every darn day. So, still acting like it's 1995 or 1996, and we act like idiots, and we have a really good time.
And that game was against the Boston College Eagles on NBC.
Well, not only that, but that was after they beat us in '93 for the national, basically costing us the national championship. Granted, we still should have got a share of that. Everybody felt so bad for poor Bobby Bowden that, was a lifetime achievement award for him that year. But then they beat us again in 94 when we kind of had the down year. So going into that game in 95, Boston College was a very, very hated rival. So that was a big game for us, and that was very important for us.
Yeah, it's called, and I have to say, I'm originally from New England. I was born in Massachusetts, lived in New Hampshire for 13 years. So I remember when you won a Super Bowl with the Patriots. So I've got to ask you, Mark.
Yeah.
What was it like to play with Tom Brady and have Bill Belichick as your head coach?
Well, starting with Tom Brady first. When I got there, Tom Brady was a fourth-team scrub, right? Mm-hmm. He was even lucky just to be on the team at that time because most teams only keep 3 quarterbacks. Sometimes they keep 2 quarterbacks and a practice squad guy. But in 2000, the year he got drafted, they ended up keeping 4 quarterbacks. And when I got to New England, he was still the 4th-team quarterback behind Bledsoe, who just signed the first $100 million deal. And then you had Damon Heward they brought in from Miami to be the backup. And then you still had Bishop from Kansas State, who was the 3rd-team guy. And Brady came in that year, and he played outstanding in the preseason. Looked great in practice. He looked as good as Bledsoe, but, Bledsoe, was the franchise guy. He was the face of the program at that time. And you weren't going to replace him, until that hit happened, with Mo Lewis. People have seen it. TV does not do it justice. It sounded like he hit him with a shotgun in the chest, not his helmet. I mean, that was one of the most violent hits I'd ever seen that ended up severing a blood vessel in Drew Bledsoe's chest cavity. That was slowly filling it with blood as the evening wore on. He had to go in for emergency surgery later that night. But, that year, we protected Brady. Brady was not the, 4,000 and 5,000 yard passer that he was later on in his career that year. He was, 16 for 20, 200 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and we ran the ball for 150 yards a game. We played great defense and great special teams. We did the intangible stuff, and that's how we won that Super Bowl that year. We just got, we started off 0-2, 1-3, got to 5-5, and then we just went on this magical run where from game 11 on and throughout the playoffs, we basically scored a touchdown on special teams or defense every game, in addition to, just playing great team football. We were number 18 in the league in offense that year, number 15 in the league in defense, but we were top 5 in red zone offense, top 5 in red zone defense, and top 5 in turnover margin. And that was really how we won game in playing situational football that year. So, backing up to Belichick, Belichick at that time was not the mastermind, the GOAT, whatever you want to call it. He was a guy who, had one okay year in Cleveland. And you didn't know that he was going to be this game planning genius at that time. He was just a guy that was rough on us in practice, right? Right. But as the season kind of moved on, you saw these game plans developed by Belichick and developed by Charlie Weiss, who was our offensive coordinator at the time. And it was like, man, this makes a lot of sense. The things that we're doing. The biggest example of that was we played the Rams, who was the greatest show on turf, best team in the league that year. Week 10,
the quarterback.
Lost them on a Sunday night. It was 24-17. But the game wasn't that close. I think we scored a late touchdown to make the score, look a little bit. They really kicked our butts. But we blitzed 80% of the time that game. We could never get to them. Now, fast forward to the Super Bowl, completely changed the game plan. We were rushing 3 guys, occasionally 4 guys. But what we would do is, because defense practices, the offense kind of sits back and watch, and then the offense does their thing, and against this scout team defense. So as I'm sitting there watching what the defense is doing, whichever way Marshall Faulk would release, that defensive end would almost stop rushing and just like tackle Marshall Faulk and take him out of the passing game. And it was just such a stark contrast to the game plan that we played in the first time. And I mean, it worked. We shut, the greatest show on turf. you know, the most prolific, one of the most prolific offenses in NFL history, shut them down, you know, for 3 quarters. They had 3 points going in the fourth quarter. Granted, they scored 2 quickly late to make, you know, late game Brady heroics. I mean, it was just a beautiful, masterful game plan. And that's when I kind of realized, like, hey, this Belichick guys know what the heck he's doing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Marc.
And by the way, he wears his rock with pride.
Yeah. Marc.
The first time I met Mark, I'm introduced to Mark, and he sticks his fist out to me, and I'm like, holy cow, that thing's huge.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, that was the first one the Patriots won, 2001 season. The one they won in 18, George, is literally twice the size of that. That is how the evolution of the Super Bowl ring has just gone. I mean, it's absolutely crazy how big they are now. Like, I walk into a place, if I wear it, the whole place sees it. It's big, it's gaudy, but you still wear it. Like these ones now, I mean, they're
like,
ludicrous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Marc. I will say this, Marc. You were born on November 17th. I'm a week after. I was born on the 24th. So your birthdays and I are separated by a week.
By the way, all right. Well, I'm 50 now, so I mean,
I'll be 44. I'll be 44 on the
I just turned 50. My birthday just recently in November.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's called. Hey, Chris, I think it's time to bring in another Notre Dame standout, right?
Yes. Let's bring in another friend of George's. George, you want to welcome this guy in?
So, once again, this player moved from defensive back to tailback. Okay, and he played for the Redskins and the Buccaneers. And like Mark, he played under the great coach Lou Holtz. And as well as Reggie Brooks is also involved with the Holtz's Heroes organization. So with that, and he's an author. So let's bring in Reggie Brooks.
How we doing, guys?
Hey,
Hey, Reggie.
Reggie,
What's up, Mark? What's up, brother?
hey, you know, speaking of Reggie, one of my first experiences with Reggie was I was at the Snow Bowl game as a recruit when, you know, he caught that 2-point conversion and just amazing. I was also at the Michigan game that year where he got knocked the hell out. But
see, I wasn't going to bring that up. I was going to leave unconscious catch and touchdown, you know, into the
I'll
situation.
just stick to the snow game. I'll stick to the
That's
snow
right.
game.
That's right. So I saw all aspects of Reggie even before I got to the University of Notre Dame.
That's cool.
You both are you're both a great set of guys. But to get to what the current situation is, guys, this is something that has been in the making, right? BK was in there for 10 to 12 years. I'm in the middle of California and on my daughter's band trip. She was in the parade, Southern California Hollywood parade, and my phone starts blowing up. And Chris is one of the guys calling me, what the hell's going on? I'm like, things are coming into me that Brian Kelly's just left the group. And he's going to LSU. I was like, Brian Kelly, and I don't even mention his name anymore. Just ruined my Christmas, just ruined my family vacation because instead of thinking about my daughter and what's going on, I'm now going backwards and thinking about what's going to be going on over the next couple hours. But long story short, I think that move by Brian Kelly was the absolute best thing for this organization. Those players love Coach Freeman, and they've embraced him. And to me, he is a lot like your coach, Lou Holtz. He's a player's coach, he's a motivator, and he knows how to get the most out of his folks.
Well, I wouldn't say he's a player. I wouldn't say Lou Holtz is a player's coach because he was really rough on us, you know. But at the same time, you know, you saw, you know, his genius and what he was doing, and he motivated you in a much different way than I believe Marcus Freeman does. But you know, if you go back, you know, kind of when Kelly left, I'm very appreciative of what Kelly did because Notre Dame, we were down, right? We were not a top 25 program. We had dropped down. Kelly brought us back to a second tier type program, not the Alabama, Clemson, Ohio States of the world, but we were in there, with the teams just right below them, right? The Floridas and Texas and A&M and schools like that. Kelly got us to a certain point, but I don't think he was going to be able to get us over the hump, right?
Correct.
And now that's kind of where we are. We're getting, we're not over that hump yet, but we are right on the precipice of getting over that hump of being an elite team that's dangerous and in the hunt every single year.
Right. Exactly. I totally agree with you. I think Lou Holtz basically when you guys won the championship in 1988, everybody thinks that you guys were going to go win another one the next year, and it seems like ever since 1988, it's been like one of those you get there against Alabama. What, George? What year was that when it got to Alabama?
2012.
Yeah,
2012.
With all the situation with Monte Teo and that fake girlfriend and all that stuff. If that didn't happen, and you guys were focused on the game, I think you could have beaten Nick Saban, and give Brian Kelly the first.
It changes history.
Yeah.
I was at that national championship game, and Alabama was definitely different. When I saw one of their tailback literally smack one of our linebackers down in the backfield and just run around him. That was
we weren't on the same page. Like they won the get off the bus, viewing of these players. I mean, we did not look the same as them out on the field that year, and not only that, but I mean, if you look back to that year, we won a lot of close games. Granted, that's intangibles and things like that, but we weren't going out and smacking teams that we should have smacked. This year, now even going back to when Marcus Freeman was hired, right? They had players loved him, players coach, very positive, but he made a lot of mistakes, a lot of young head coaching mistakes the first couple of years, right? And he learned from them, and he went out and hired experience, right? Golden and
what a president does. A president puts a good group, a cabinet around him that know those things. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And he's kind of taken that next step, this year. I liked what he was doing off the field, the recruiting, the charisma, the way he represented Notre Dame, but he was finding ways to lose games we had no business losing. And, same thing happened in IU this year. And I'm like, maybe we haven't quite gotten there yet. But from that point on, we have been putting the smackdown on teams we should be putting the smackdown on and embarrassing them and burying them. And that's what you need to do to get to that next level. And, now we've had some big games, the last few weeks as well, and we stepped up in those big games. The narrative always was under BK, you lose the big game. And now we've won 3 big games in a row. And, we got the biggest one since 1988 coming up right now, or maybe, 93, the Florida State game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I will say this to you, Reggie and Mark. Chris and I covered the ACC, and when we were at ACC kickoff a couple years ago, Chris, we saw Riley Leonard when he was at Duke, and I was really impressed with him, at Duke, and now what he's done at Notre Dame, it's incredible, sensational. He's got that running back and Jeremiah Love that he can hand the ball off to. I think this is going to be a close game on Monday night in Atlanta. I think Ohio State is currently favored right now, so I think this is going to be. Riley Leonard has impressed me ever since he stepped on the field in South Bend.
Well, my thing with Riley is the fact that he was unable to practice all spring. He missed part of the summer ball, and he's made progressions. And early on, I just don't think he had the confidence and the connection with the receivers are the tight end early on in the season. But he's gotten progressively better. But he's going to have to play lights out because Ohio State's going to stop the run.
Right.
They understand that, that's the machine that makes Notre Dame function offensively. Defensively, our defense, I'll put them up against anybody in the country. They just play a physical brand of football. They're fast. They're active. They do a great job. Except one of the guys that just really stand out to me, you got Xavier Watt on the back end, but Kaiser in the middle. He does such a great job of getting guys lined up in that front seven, and he's one of the better rushing linebackers you'll see because he finds a way to have get those angles, and then you got Drake Bowen, you have Osbury, you have Sneed, Don Shula, and then to have those two corners play like they're playing because I thought when we lost
Morrison,
we were in trouble.
Part of the country.
Yeah, and you got a freshman, a true freshman, and a true sophomore lining up at the corner and playing because they're going to have to play lights out because Ohio State's going to attack us downfield with their passing game because they're elite on the outside. So we're going to have to get some pressure on Will Howard and make him uncomfortable early because I think if we can get to him, he will make some mistakes.
True. Yeah. I mean, and you look at what Ohio State has at wide receiver. One of their wide receivers is a freshman, and he's doing this as a freshman. You saw what he did against Tennessee and Oregon. Yeah, he wasn't really a factor, in the game versus Texas in the semifinal. But if he gets loose, Notre Dame better watch out because he's got that speed, and it's probably going to be pretty hard to stop him.
Yeah, he's big and physical, but I mean, our corners would be considered long corners. They're in the 6'6", 6'1", 6'2" range. They're going to have to play physical with him. But I think, again, with our safeties and Xavier Watt, if we're able to allow him to roam free, he'll make some plays. And, again, like I said, it's going to come back to our ability to get pressure on the quarterback, make Will Howard uncomfortable to make some mistakes because that's what won the game last week. Last week against Penn State was getting the Aller uncomfortable, and he made an error throw, and we capitalized. So and then we're going to have to find a way to run the ball, but I really think Ohio State's going to stack the box and force Riley to beat us with his arm. And he is very much capable of making the throws. And that's the thing that frustrates me about Riley is that I just wish he would play with the confidence that he has when he's running the ball. If he throws because he's thrown, I've seen him make the throws. The outcut, he has a strong arm, but he's constantly, he gets, uncomfortable when he go try to aim the ball versus just throwing the ball. I want to see him, again, this is your last game, Riley. There's no holding back. Just cut loose, brother, and just see the receiver, throw the ball. Don't think about throwing it. Just go throw it because you've done it. And it's just like
Reggie, this is his biggest interview.
If he can be consistent throwing the ball and having that confidence throwing, it'll be a huge. We're talking about a huge upset.
Yeah,
Reggie, if he wants to get to the pros and be a quarterback in the pros, this is the game that's going to have all the tape on him. This is going to have all the eyes, watching and see what does Riley Leonard do. So, like you said, he's got to go out there, and he's got the legs. We get it, but you're going to have to pass the ball, and you got to prove that you can pass the ball if you want to get to the next level.
True.
I agree. I totally agree with you. We saw him, Adam, when he was at Duke, and I don't think he was right last year after Florida State when Notre Dame knocked him out at the end of the game with that Duke game.
That's true.
Yeah, and like you said, it took a while for him to get back to being 100%. But I think now, he knows what to do with the football, and I think Coach Freeman is basically let him be the quarterback because the only problem with Brian Kelly was he puts handcuffs on his quarterbacks. and say you can't do this, you can't do that. Freeman's like, go ahead and do what you got to do. If you want to run the ball, run the ball. If you want to pass the ball, pass the ball. And I think he works well with the offensive coordinator. And I think those two are working together. And I see that Notre Dame's putting up more points this year than last year.
He's got to become a more cerebral quarterback.
Right. I agree. Anyway.
So guys, getting down to one of your favorite folks in this world, Lou Holtz. Notre Dame wins last week, and the first thing that comes to my head is, where's Lou Holtz? And he's got a destination meeting with Ryan Day. I mean, we're talking about the 88-year-old guy, by the way, and there's numbers here that are kind of in the way people think about the mystique of Notre Dame. Lou Holtz has turned 88 this year. Marcus Freeman is in the third year of his contract under Notre Dame. And when the coaches have come in to win national championships, it's in their third year. It's a weird thing, but it's the mystique that is Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, one of the things that I really think has propelled Notre Dame this year is they play with intangibles, right? Mm-hmm. The defense steps up in the key situations. Like we have gotten multiple turnovers in key situations all throughout the playoffs, and we had no turnovers. Granted, we had 2 interceptions called back during the Penn State game, but in the most crucial moment, we stepped up and the defense made a play. And that's the only way we're going to beat Ohio State. I kind of go back to the Super Bowl we won. We were like 9.5 point or maybe 10.5 point favorites, or underdogs. And we won the turnover battle. We returned a interception for a touchdown for our first touchdown in that Super Bowl. We played outstanding defense. We shut down a high-powered, high-flying offense. But we got to make, we got to win the turnover battle. We got to score on special teams or defenses, which we've been, pretty much doing, throughout the season, right? And you got to play a special game in this situation, especially when you're going up against what is perceived as a more talented team. Now, one of Ohio State's Achilles heels has been playing against physical teams. Michigan is physical. They dominate the defensive line of scrimmage. They dominate the offensive line of scrimmage. And Ohio State has not had an answer for that in multiple years. And, that's the type of team that we are, despite the injuries on the offensive line and the defensive line. We still have managed to play physical up front, and that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to play physical on the outside with those receivers. We're going to have to reroute those guys. We can't let them get off the line, run down the field. Granted, we have more athleticism than Notre Dame typically has. We have more speed than we typically have. Guys like, linebackers like Drake, but he could be playing safety as big and fast as he is. Yeah. Our corners. Granted, when we lost Benjamin Morrison, I thought, man, that's a major loss. Young guys, fast, physical guys stepped up. And, that's the difference in Notre Dame now versus a few years back. We've always had good physical front sevens, right? We had multiple first-round picks on offensive line. We've had, just great guys all around. But, now we got athletes to compete with that top tier of teams that we've been just below the last, 20 years.
True. I agree. Oh, I don't know. Did he log out? I don't know. But Marc, what's the big, if you're doing this game for ESPN, and a lot of people will ask you if you're a broadcaster, what is the keys for Notre Dame to win this game on Monday, knowing that these are 2 schools that played each other last year, and it was a really physical battle?
Yeah. Well, I think I kind of hit on that just a second ago. Obviously, the turnover battle is going to be huge. We cannot lose the turnover battle. We can't turn the ball over. We cannot give Ohio State a short field because they're going to score on a short field. they're going to create momentum if they score on a short field. Conversely, we have to create those turnovers. We got to create that chaos up front, and Notre Dame has been spectacular in what, the big emphasis has been in the middle eight, right? That's where we've won these last two games, in the middle eight, right? The flurry against Georgia at the end of the first half and to start the second half, and the same thing. What Angeli did at the end of the first half, after we had been stymied by Penn State that whole first half. I mean, going down to get 3 points, that was huge going into halftime. Right. And then to come out and run it down their throat and be physical in the second half, and now they'll say, hey, we're a 0-0 game again, right? And that's what we need to do. We got to win the turnover battle. We got to create field position by the defense making big plays, whether that's sacks, turnovers, whatever it is, and we cannot turn the ball over. You got to play Ohio State physical. You got to play them physical in the trenches. You got to play those guys on the outside physical. You can't let those receivers get going because they are just so athletic. And not having that Henderson, that screen pass at the end of the first half against Texas, that was the difference in the game. I mean, you can say Jack Kaiser at the end of the game, whatever, but I mean, that was the difference in the game. Texas goes down, ties that up 7-7. Their defense was holding Ohio State the whole first half. And that was a backbreaker, a heartbreaker for Texas. Granted, they still had their chance at the end, but you got second and goal on the 1 yard line. You throw a toss sweep. That was one of the stupidest things I've ever seen in my life. Line me and Reggie up in 4 plays in a row. And we're in our 50s. We're going to score in 4 plays in a row. We might not walk the next day, but we're going to score in 3 plays from the one, no matter what. And that's what Texas should have done, taking that game to overtime, and then who knows what happens. But you've got to be physical. You cannot have lost yardage plays. You cannot have turnovers against elite athletes that can score at any time. And that's really the key.
And Mark, there's got to be a willingness to make an adjustment. And going back to Angeli for a second, he comes in the game because Leonard gets hurt and goes into the tent, right? Mm-hmm. They come out and they have to change because there are 2 different types of quarterbacks. And Angeli comes out and he starts throwing the ball, and all of a sudden they're not responding to the plays that Notre Dame's throwing at them. If Angeli does not come in as quarterback, I think that game changes, because everyone was so worried about sticking to the game plan that they weren't making an adjustment to make the defense, change what they were doing.
Right. Exactly. Reggie, what's your keys for Notre Dame to win this game on Monday and first title since 1988?
Well, it starts with up front. You have to control the line of scrimmage, and whoever wins the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball will likely win this game. And that's number one. Number two, I got to agree with Marc. Turnovers are going to be key. Whoever wins the turnover battle will most likely win this game. Mm-hmm. And three, Marc also touched about special teams. Creating good field position with return or block punt, some sort of, special teams big play is going to factor into the success of, who wins the game. Whoever manages special teams the best will have the best opportunity to win the game. So, control the line of scrimmage, to win the turnover battle, and more than anything else, like I said, win special teams.
Big plays on special teams, huge momentum, huge, just gets everybody fired up. I mean, it's an exciting play. It transforms the momentum in a game if you have a big return, if you have a punt, if you block a punt, if you do something special like that. I mean, that creates just so much momentum.
And Marc, one of the bigger differences with this team is they can do that. In the past, I've always talked about, when writing about Notre Dame football and things that were going on, I've always talked about there was no triple threat. We were always at one position strong, another position strong. but there was never that opportunity where the opponent did not know where the play was going to come from. And in this team, I think you have that. Nobody knows where that threat's going to come from at what position.
Sure.
Yeah, we are very balanced. I don't think we still don't have that really deep threat. That a receiver is going to take the top off necessarily, right? Like even the Great House touchdown was, he beat a guy at the line of scrimmage and then he beat somebody else. He didn't run by everybody, right? So Notre Dame's got to be a little more methodical in what they do. And granted, if Love is healthy, he can take it the house just like Trayvon Henderson did on that screen pass, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But he has not been the same since Indiana. Okay. Now, hopefully that little bit of extra rest that we had, because we had a really short week against Penn State compared to the rest that Penn State got. Now, we've had the extra time. We have the extra day, one more extra day than Ohio State. And I think we needed it because, we're beat up a little bit. Granted, we've been placing guys in positions all year long. Some guys like, was it the offensive tackle, Jagwish, or however you pronounce it? He's back now, and he was the projected starter to begin the season. So, that helps with the Knapp injury. But, he hasn't been there gelling with those guys all year. But, that little bit of extra time, is going to be very key for getting Love just a little bit more healthy, and, getting these other guys just a little bit more healthy, getting Spindler just a little bit more healthy that we didn't have against Penn State. And, those little things could be, very, very big come Monday night.
Exactly.
Well, it's going to be interesting how they work Mitchell Evans. I think he's been underutilized all season, but you start to see a little bit more activity from him in this past game and the game before. And I think he can be a real tool because, again, if you can get you a tight end that's effective in the blocking game, but also a key receiver, that's huge because he can attack them down the middle and it'll force their safeties, getting someone down the middle to force their safeties to not be able to, kind of sit, 10 yards deep and play downhill to stop the run. If we can get him, make some plays down the field with the tight end, I think that'll be key. And he's really kind of they've started to gel a little bit. And I think, again, the more Riley gets comfortable with his receivers and tight ends and even the running back, Aeneas Williams, that kid is impressive. His ability to pass pro, first of all, he steps up in there and takes it on. But getting him out of the backfield, because that's going to be a key. And we saw it last week, the importance of being able to chip. And I just hope Denbrock, the protections do not leave our tackles on islands. That has not worked well.
That was very evident when Baker went in there, when Knapp went down. They needed to help that guy, but it wasn't built in the game plan. So and then we were going against. Granted, he was dinged up a little bit, but the number one defensive end in the country last week.
Right.
And that was worrisome at times during that game, but we found a way to overcome.
Exactly. Well, guys, we got to wrap it up. But thank you so much for coming on, Reggie and Mark. And I hope you guys enjoy the game Monday night, and hopefully we'll have a different maybe Tuesday morning will be something special for you guys.
Hey, absolutely. I'm sure Reggie will be there. I'm going to be there with my son. So I am excited. I'm fired up. I was at the Indiana game. Didn't make it to New Orleans, but the whole family was down in Miami, and we're going to finish it up in Atlanta.
All right, cool. Thanks, guys. Have a great rest of your weekend, okay?
I'll see you in Atlanta, Mark.
Go Irish.
Go Irish.
All right, guys.
Go Irish.
All right, go Irish. All right, see you. Back. All right, that's